Welcome back, Warriors. Another episode of Anxiety Warriors podcast.
Woohoo! We are so excited to be with you all today.
Yes, we are joined by a very special guest, Shari Vilchez-Blatt. And so I'm going to tell you all a little bit about who Shari is and the work that she does. And then we're going to get into a little bit of a recap of this episode. So Shari Vilchez-Blatt is the founder and creator of Karma Kids Yoga. She serves children and families of all abilities in New York City and the boroughs and New Jersey since 2002. She's trained thousands around the world in children's yoga, teen yoga, baby yoga, professional development for yoga and mindfulness in schools, as well as for parenting groups. In 2009, she released Karma Kids Yoga's Come Play Yoga album, which won a Gold Mom's Choice Award. Shari has been a presenter at the National Kids Yoga Conference since its inception and Yoga Journal Live. Shari is a regular contributor to New York Yoga Plus Life magazine, Kids and Family section, and is currently an ambassador for the National Yoga Plus Life brand. Shari has been featured on Sesame Street, sharing yoga with Murray and Ovahita at Yoga School. Shari lives to play and plays to live. And she is such a rock star. We had so much fun chatting with her. So Abby, tell us a little bit about what we chatted about with Miss Shari today.
Yes. I feel a lot of it was about habits. It was really interesting how she started off sharing about how in high school she would naturally just like fidget with her fingers to the extent where she's like picking at her fingers and her cuticles, but it was just normal for her. It was just a habit. And it wasn't until later in life where she realized that this was a way that her anxiety was expressing itself. And she also shares just a lot of how she lived her life not realizing that she had anxiety until one day it was like a punch in the face that woke her up. And she realized that it was something she has to now kind of tend to and pay attention to and care for. So this conversation was really fun to have. Shari is just this like strong powerhouse and like this vibrant light mixed in one. And she really tells her story in this lighthearted way, but also in this way that like, hey, all people have anxiety. And this is her story of anxiety.
Yes, and we cannot wait for you all to hear it. Here she is. Welcome, Shari. We are so excited that you're here for the Anxiety Warriors podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are beyond thrilled. We've been following you for such a long time. You're such an important figure in the yoga world, which is our world or a big part of our world. And so when you reached out to be a guest on the podcast, Abby and I were like, woohoo!
So we did our happy dance.
Yeah, we did our silly happy
dance. It's so
dance.
funny because I was like so nervous in like reaching out of like, do I fit? I don't know. Do I qualify?
Yeah. And it's funny because when you said that to me in our call before we recorded, I was like, we are here to tell anxiety stories about it. So there's no such thing as like a person who fits or the type of guest we're looking for. Anxiety stories are what we're here to tell and showcase. And you have such an interesting one. So let's just dive right in. And Shari, will you please share with our listeners a little bit about your anxiety story?
I want to start by saying I really didn't realize I had any anxiety. I first noticed things like when in my teenage years, maybe around 16 or 17 years old, I noticed that I would start like picking at my cuticles, around my nails, picking skin, pulling it, but not really being aware that I was doing it until I drew blood. Then I'm suddenly like, wow, what? I didn't realize I was doing this. So, I didn't really think much of it because I was a teenager and busy and things to, do in my life. But, years would go by and I would notice this would happen when I would give a book report, when I gave a speech, anytime where I was standing in front of others or an opportunity to shine in some way, leading up to that, as well as while I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing. So you can imagine, like, if I was giving a book report, by the time I was done, there might be blood dripping down my fingers, down my hands. Like it was just normal, and not normal, but part of my life that I didn't have time to really, I was like, hey, oh, okay, that's interesting. Stop the bleeding, move on. So I didn't really, do anything about it. It was just something I did, considered a habit just a weird habit. And it would occur, throughout my teenage years in college. Long before Kid Yoga, I was in advertising, and the same kinds of things would happen. Mostly around new people I was comfortable with, like your clients and your team. I didn't find that would happen when I would have, a meeting where, that I was leading. But if it involved newer people or some kind of interaction, and again, like I didn't realize this at the time, this is, much further in the future, looking back and going, oh my goodness, yeah, you're dealing with some stuff. And it was like a nervousness. Mm-hmm. But I felt totally manageable, except my hands were gross. And I often found myself, hands in pockets, or like even just like curling my fingers in when they were bad. And then, while I was in advertising, also getting manicures definitely helped that. So it kind of like made that go away a little bit. Again, like nothing to think about because it was never debilitating, right? And then, my whole world shift into the yoga world and kids yoga and running a business. And I learned how to deal with things like stress and anxiety and nervousness. It wasn't something I grew up with. I didn't grow up with yoga, but I learned about it. And my job was to help others with anxiety. And I knew tools that I could use when I got nervous. But the finger picking thing went on, and like it's still like to this day. But like I look at this as kind of not a big deal. It's manageable. I bleed, they're gross, whatever. In 2014, I was in a situation where the landlord of my building was new, and he was kicking me out. He was getting rid of all the kids' businesses, and I had 3 months to find a new place and move like what was a very busy, successful business somewhere else. When I rented this space that I had for over 10 years, it was the only space I knew, and it was affordable, but it was an icky building, but they let me in there. Anyway, I had 3 months, and every place I looked either wouldn't allow for children or was not usable. I just wasn't finding anything. And at this time, I had a staff of over 20 teachers. And within these 3 months, like the first month was stressful. The second month was super duper stressful. The third of that month was horrible. And I'll never forget sitting on my couch and just like, I don't know, I was probably watching TV, but like a wave that started from my feet all through my body that literally picked me up of anxiety. I didn't know what else to think of it. I didn't even put anxiety on it. I was just like, this is a horrible feeling. This is all stress. And I've never felt this before. I do not like it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And this lasted until I found my space. Not every moment, but like a wave. It was literally like a punch in the face of like anxiety, like, and I didn't know what to do with that. I couldn't sleep, or if I would fall asleep, like that big wave would get me up, and there was no going back to sleep. And I really didn't know what to do with that, and I didn't really have time, or I felt that I didn't have time to pay attention to myself. Mm-hmm. So just like typical me of just, okay, you know what, I'll do this anxiety thing for a little bit. I got my space. Okay, now I gotta, yay, things are good again. And I don't feel that big wave of stress. So,
There's so many things that I can relate to in this story. And I have a reflection and I have a question. So the reflection is, so in elementary school, middle school, high school, I was a nail biter and a nail picker, not like a cuticle, but like my nails were always super duper short. And again, it was like what you said, it's like just totally normal, right? Even though it's not normal to the general public, for us, it's just who we are, what we do. And for me, it wasn't until I learned about anxiety and how to manage it and care for it, that then all of a sudden my nails started growing. So like that for me was a huge, like, oh, I'm starting to get a handle on it. So I just feel like we all have these fidgeties that we do to manage anxiety and we don't even realize it. But then my question is, for you, like picking the cuticles was so normal, right? That was part of your life and who you are. When when did you realize that that was like an anxious thing? Or when did you realize that, oh, not everyone picks their cuticles. Maybe this is information for me. Like,
I'm going to say early 20s. So like, it was more in a professional world versus like college, because I feel like even though I know I did that through college, we're all dirty and, eating ramen. And so like all those things just get excused, like hygiene. So I'm going to definitely say like in my 20s, because like in a professional environment, I can't be bleeding in front of my clients with hands. Like it was just, and the thing was like, I didn't realize I was doing it. And other people didn't necessarily realize I was doing, because often under the table.
yeah.
Like currently, like my husband, he's with me for 25 years. He's like, I hear it. I hear you. Like, and it's quiet. Oh, my daughter too. She's like, I hear you. Stop. I'm like, I don't even realize I'm doing it.
Wow. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a
It's
deeply ingrained habit.
it's so funny too, because like just listening to both of you, and thinking back to my youth, I'm like, I did a lot of weird things with my hands too. And like, even when Sherry, when you and I spoke before we were recording, and when I learned a little bit about your story, I thought this piece was really interesting, and I didn't really start reflecting on it until just this moment. It was like I used to wear a lot of rings on my fingers, like what we
So
did in
did
the
you do
'90s,
this?
so much jewelry, and so
Yes.
I would move my thumbs in particular. I would play with my thumb ring, and it would go. And I had the world's ugliest like horse-sized calluses on the knuckle area of my thumbs. They were gross. And it was like, yeah, looking back, it's like, yeah, that was 100% an anxious tick. And I just, and I still, even
Yeah.
now, I notice when my fists are clenched, that's a tell for me. Like Abby said, that's information. So thinking
Yeah.
on this, you did, so obviously you've spoken a little bit about these certain behaviors, the external, the internal. So are there any others that came up for you as far as like the way that anxiety manifested or manifests even now in your mind or body or behaviors?
Um, Now, I hadn't really experienced that punch in the face anxiety until kind of recently.
Mhm.
But having sat through a pandemic and just, having a lot of free time and almost forcing myself to now go into a place of self-care and reflection, I'm grateful that I'm stuck at home and dealing with just, because I know myself and I know I wouldn't have had the time for this. I tend to often put myself last.
Mhm.
I have a child and a business and so it just, often goes that way. And, through the pandemic, especially when it first started, again, I put myself last of, let me make sure the community is okay. And how can I support teachers? Is my child, all my students, the families, everyone? And so I don't want to say I hid in that energy, but I kind of hid in the place of, let me help, let me help. And I didn't feel like I was pouring from an empty cup, because I love what I do. And it does make me, it like literally makes my heart sing. But it's like during some of those down times, or just, reflecting inward and then seeing like totally outside of kids yoga and work, and just like going outdoors, getting too close to people, like my anxiety came back like an unexpected ex that you just don't want to see.
Get out of here, person and feeling.
Yeah,
Get that
and
over
the
you
one
years ago.
the the one thing I can say is that I know, especially after this very last time, and then in coming and reaching out to you, I'm not ignoring it anymore. Like
Mm.
it's going to get my undivided attention. Um, I yeah, I don't feel it's over. Meaning, I don't know how you guys are with going outside. I'm in New York City, and I'm easing into my being social again,
Yeah.
and some things feel right. And some things I don't know till it happens. And I'm like, I feel out of control. So
Yeah.
I'll let you know how I keep managing it. I just don't know right now.
It's I feel that way. Like I feel like I had my anxiety in a good place. We were friends. Anxiety would pop up, but be like, no, we're good. And then the pandemic hit, and I can really relate to like, oh my gosh, who am I now? Because now I feel more social anxiety around people, or now I feel anxiety going into spaces indoors. And how do I feel about being near people? And it's like we're learning, at least I'm learning how to be again in a way that feels healthy for me and safe for me and comfortable for me, but also trying to go back to being around people and being, in spaces.
Yeah. There's strategies that I love to use. But when it's that, overwhelming, like
Yeah.
I like the manageable anxieties, like this I can manage.
Yeah.
It's the
Predictable.
wave and the panic and like heat. That was a whole new thing, which I didn't experience back when I was closing my studio, but like literally my temperature rises. It feels like 10 degrees hotter, and I just desperately need air, even though I have it. So yeah, this was like, it's hard.
Yeah. And it shows up in a lot of different ways now than it did before.
Yeah.
And I think, something that I feel like I've heard twice now is like this theme of how your habits, right? Whether it's picking at your nails or your habit of serving everyone else before you, is a way where your anxiety is trying to talk to you like, hey, pay
Pay
attention to
attention.
me, give me some love too. But these habits, these go-tos are ways that you're kind of like navigating it or managing it, but it might not be always what your anxiety wants or needs.
Yeah. So we're learning to work together.
Yeah.
Yes. I love the way to, and this came up in our conversation with Mimi, and it's kind of becoming a little bit of a trend as well. We notice that anxiety comes up sort of in seasons, right? In times of our life, right? And the pandemic, unfortunately, has been a season of our lives. And I think it's important that we remember that, right? Seasons change. These feelings, these waves, they come and go. And even as professionals, we know this. Some of it's predictable, some of it's not predictable. And it's when you mentioned, like going out and like being on the subway, and all of a sudden it's like that jolt. It's like, oh no, I'm in the middle of a situation that never used to bother me, but now that we've been in this riding this wave collectively, right? All of us, I'm sure even people that maybe didn't know they had any anxiety. Raina said this, right? She's an educator and she didn't really see herself as an anxious person until teaching in the pandemic. And so just as a reminder out there, right? Just like these things are coming to us all in seasons and waves. Some of it's predictable. We can kind of manage it the way Abby was kind of just expressing. And sometimes it's that punch in the face that you express, Shari. It's just like, oh man, it's here, it's now. And it didn't just steadily build. And I've got to think about doing something about it, or
No,
being
it doesn't
proud of
build.
just
It
moving
just like
through.
attacks you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about this, what have been, since the seasons of your anxiety have come and gone, and even since now you're kind of saying that you're in this new season of anxiety a little bit, what have been some of your more generally rock solid go-to strategies for either when you're having that in the moment need of self-care versus when you have time to prep, like before an event or something, like that predictability factor? It's like, okay, I'm about to give a presentation, I know I'm probably going to be a little bit worked up, so what can I do to sort of set myself up for the most success at going into it? So if you can kind of take each of
Yeah, I have
those.
I have strategies for both that I'd love to share. If I know I'm giving a presentation, or if I'm starting a teacher training, any opportunity where I need to be my best self, I'm a huge fan of Brain Gym. Are you familiar?
I only learned about this when we talked, and I was so excited for our listeners to hear about this. So please.
So Brain Gym launches with something called PACE, which is a reverse acronym.
What does each letter of the acronym stand for again?
So E is the energy for water. That's our water. C is for clarity. That was our brain buttons, right? Clear points. The A is for action. That's the crossing of the midline. And the P and pace are the positive points. That was the, I got to go through that. That was this and the changing of our legs as well as these, right?
The finger presses.
The starting point of all things brain gym. And that always makes me feel very rooted and clear. So for me, I actually start all my days like this. I used before learning the benefits of brain gym and how this can help. I used to wake up and jump in the shower, grab my coffee after and be like, okay, I'm gonna sit on my computer. Who a teacher called in sick? What fires do I have to put out? And I started doing brain gym. And instead of starting my day with that madness, I now am like, after my brain gym, I'm like, all right, let's see what teachers called in sick, what schools are closed, what other fires have to be put out. From there are worry buttons. And these are my favorite things for anyone that has the tiniest little worry to huge anxiety and stress. And ideally, it's nice if someone does it for you, but we're not always in that situation. And worry buttons are literally just doing this. It's taking our fingertips, not just our fingertips, but our fingers, gentle pressure on the forehead, right? And so how you would start, like say I was the giver and Margot was the receiver. Margot would lie down on her back, sit behind her. And chances are when Margot starts, her feet are straight up, her hands might be closed, her mouth is probably closed. And I would do this for her for about 5 to 7 minutes. She just breathes. I want to keep my nostril breath away from her. That's a pro tip. It doesn't help ease anyone's worries when you feel
when you're just breathing on them.
But what we're looking for is Margot's splaying of the feet, the opening of the hands, and the parting of the lips. Now, when I've used these almost always at test taking time with a lot of my students. I've used it myself. I've used it on my husband, my child, like adults, kids, everybody. Once you share and feel how you feel from doing those worry buttons, it's extremely powerful. So let's say we did this to Margot, and now we're done. I never just come away. I want to like hover, slowly move so that Margot's like not even sure if I'm still there.
Feel the energy still.
Yeah. And then it's likely going to take Margot 2 to 4 minutes to even peel herself up from that floor.
I'd probably be sleeping.
But what's so interesting is, again, like I learned this in brain gym. And upon doing that, I'm like, this is so familiar to me. I realized my kinesiologist does this to me in every single visit because he says I'm always fight or flight. But when I walk out, I want to say walk out, I float out. It's just really powerful, and it doesn't change your problem, but it changes your energy and how you're gonna deal with that. And that can be so helpful and powerful to kids, to any adult. Now, I had shared that my most recent anxiety was on the subway, not the place to lie down and have someone give me worry buttons, So in that case, or if I'm ever alone, I can do this to myself. If I'm in a classroom setting or just it's too weird in the meeting for you to, like we can hide in this way. But they are so powerful. I wish there was more of like, I can press a worry button and my anxiety just shoots out my body and it's gone.
Wouldn't that be great?
What I'm really hearing in this is when you realize that you had anxiety, right? And you realize you wanted to stop getting punched in the face. You realize you had to change some of your habits, right? It's like going back to habits again. And your habit used to be hop out of bed and get slammed with stress. And now your habit is wake up, take care of yourself. Even if it's short, it does something where you have more of an energetic yet calm feeling that helps you receive your world in a more, in a more peaceful way, in a more less
Yes. And
chaotic
it's
way.
only a few minutes,
Yeah.
and that was like, I would say that was the most important step.
Yeah.
But upon doing it, I still didn't think of it as anxiety. Like
Mhm.
it's just so funny because I feel like everything that's going on now is me reflecting back and going, "Oh my goodness, I was riddled with anxiety
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
didn't know it." And
Didn't
here
know
I am
it.
teaching children of all ages like how to deal with their anxiety, and like it's pouring out of my body.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware.
I love that you bring that up too, because I think that not just for people that teach yoga and mindfulness to kids, adults, or anybody, or any professional in the wellness field at all, to remember that this is still a practice for all of us, right? This is something that we don't cure or fix. This is something that we live with, that we are learning to thrive with, not just
Mhm.
survive with. And
Yeah.
I just think it's important to reflect on that. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been practicing or teaching, that it's a powerful reflection for your students, no matter how old they are, no matter how many years you have under your belt, to know that you're still going through it. You're still in the thick of it. And that the seasons, such as like the pandemic or just big life changes or even small life changes, can sometimes trigger our anxiety, and that's okay. So thinking
Yeah.
about this, if you could go back to this season of your life, like maybe from your youth when said you were like 16, 17 years old, and say one thing to yourself, give yourself one bit of advice, what would it be? What would you say to a young Shari surrounding your
I
anxiety,
would say you got this. I would say you are enough.
Mm.
Mm,
I would say you got this. Yeah,
love it.
those two things. That
Yeah.
was so,
Another full body chill.
Yeah.
worried. Like, yeah, like, whew.
Yeah.
That's a
Right.
good one.
Anxiety tells us that we don't have it. That's why we're freaking out. You can't do this. You can't handle it. Right. And it's like, no, you can, and you always do. Just
Right.
anxiety makes it a little worse. So you got this. Like, it's
You're
Yeah.
amazing.
enough. Exactly. Love it. So, our last question before we get into lightning round, which I'm so excited about. What does being an anxiety warrior mean to you?
Oh, ladies, I was so attracted to the name that you chose because I like said it over and over to myself. I'm like, this is so brilliant. I have a background in naming like products and brands like from before. So I like
Ooh, we'll have
really,
to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
but it screams to me of I'm the boss of this. And I feel like that's an attitude you need to have. I don't want to let anxiety win. I'm like obsessed with watching you guys. I love like listening to like I think I watched your dancing out the anxiety 4 times. I'm like, I was
Yay!
like, do I match? Should I remix it for her? And but you don't want to
Yeah.
dance, but like it to me it screams that I'm the boss of it, or I'm trying, and I need to be, because I do not like anxiety. Like
I do not
so
like it, Sam. I am.
I know, that's what I heard
it was just so like the name itself just was empowering.
too.
So I feel like it's being the manager, the boss, the CEO of your stuff, like having that bad employee that you just have to kind of manage and maneuver through and put in timeouts when needed.
It's like that new, I like the idea of like the CEO, and it's like maybe the employee isn't bad, they're just like a little misunderstood,
That,
or
yeah,
they need some guidance.
that just needs
Mhm.
a little love, which is something like that you made me think differently of, like becoming friends with it.
Mhm.
Right? It's something like I had seen in your post of like, yeah, we're together, and it's like I don't have to hate you, I don't like you, but somehow we gotta work together. So I think just everything that you're doing has helped me think of things in different ways, which is like really why I kind of reached out. Not sure if do I, like I don't even know. One of
Yes.
the first things they said to you, I'm like, I'm not diagnosed, but I feel awful sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
So I
that's
think
part of it. We're looking for human stories, right?
Yeah.
And you are just such a rock star. And I can't tell you how deeply it warms my heart to hear that you're enjoying my Instagram feed. Everyone come join our Instagram feed, Anxiety Warriors podcast on IG.
Huge. You know what? I would say 10 years ago, I don't know, maybe more, maybe less. Like it's this, yeah, people talk about it, but not to this extent.
Mhm.
And I love that mental health is just really being thrown to the forefront. It has been for years, but again, I feel like the pandemic, there's a lot of good that came out of this pandemic. It sucked and I do wish it never happened. However, I am grateful it happened. Maybe you wouldn't have had this podcast had it not.
Yeah.
No.
So
Probably
there's
not.
wonderful things that came out of it. And the fact that we're putting up in a positive way and we could connect and it's not something you have to be ashamed of or hide. And, it's okay to not have a good day and it's okay to be so afraid or and just have that horrible moment. You had posted something also recently, Margot, and I just sat and read it and I was feeling you. It was you went out to eat with your husband. I appreciated your honesty and your sharing because again, a lot of people don't do that, especially, on Instagram. We show our wins and, all the great stuff, not always the hard stuff.
Yes.
So, really appreciate that.
Oh, good. That makes me so happy to hear. You are such a light. We love you so much. Speaking of light, it is time for lightning round. Get to know Shari questions.
Lightning round.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We need a couple of stings on this podcast. Abby and I keep saying lightning round, win of the week. We just keep singing them and they're terrible. Okay. So
they're perfect.
Question number 1 will be from me. You ready? If you need a pause, take a breath, take the time you need. Doesn't have to be super fast, but
I'm so excited.
Yay. Okay. What was your favorite game as a kid?
Ooh, I'm between two. I got kickball or dodgeball. Yes. It's that red ball.
Yes.
I loved kickball. Loved it. I could kick that ball so far out into the yard. I loved pitching. I loved the sound of it. I also loved dodgeball. I know it's not it doesn't have to be a game of bullying. I never bullied anybody.
No, it's fun competition.
So fun.
A lot of schools banned dodgeball. They don't play it anymore. And it was such an awesome game. And it didn't hurt. It really
didn't hurt. Those balls were soft.
No.
Well, actually, you know what? I shouldn't say the balls were soft. I feel like when we were growing up, all three of us, the balls weren't so soft. But
they
when
were
I was
rubber
a camp
and
counselor, we used these really foamy balls. So they were completely fine. No one was getting hurt. But yeah, I think it was just that was the time we grew up in. And I agree that those should come back.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The kickball and dodgeball, either one.
The sound of the kickball too. It's funny.
Yeah, I can hear it.
I hear it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I got my lightning round question. I love when Margot goes first. All right. Make the sound of kicking the kickball.
Nope. I feel like it starts with a P. No.
I love it. Oh my God, that was really good. That was legit. I could see the kickball when you made that sound.
I had to run up to it in my brain.
Yes. That was
amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
So well done. Okay, here comes the next question.
This is awesome.
If you could give yourself another name. Now, I know I had a complicated relationship with my name growing up. I love it now. Love it. But Phoebe on Friends, when she went to go change her name, she changed it to Princess Consuela Banana Hammock. And, that's maybe too ridiculous. But if you could give yourself another name, or maybe you already have an alter ego name, what is it?
Building on Phoebe, I happen to be known to some of my people as Princess Giraffe Pants. I have more nicknames at home than anyone in the whole wide world, but I also go with Sparkles.
Love it.
I'm a huge glitter.
You give lots of those.
Person, you have no idea. My family hates me. Glitter and sparkles everywhere. So I would say Sparkles. But if it was going to be a real name, a human name, when I was younger, I hated my name and wanted to change it. And what I liked then is so not what I would be now. And for some reason, I loved the name Tiffany. It sounded so fancy. It was a 3-syllable name. It had 2 F's. I don't know why. I just loved it. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not Tiffany.
Okay.
I've learned to, like I'm Shari, but when I went away to school upstate in New York, everyone called me Shari. And I loved it. And it was like having a new name. And I never corrected anyone. And even though it seems to be more of an upstate thing, every once in a while, someone calls me Shari and I leave it alone. Like I like it's like exotic to me.
I got to say something weird about this quick. I used to work at a place and at least half the people called me Margot, like it was a question. And I did not like that. But I also waited too long to correct them. And so I just let them call me Margot. And so like everyone called me Margot. That's my name, Margot. And then it was like Margot. I was like, oh my God. This is terrible.
Emphasis on the second?
I don't know.
It's like
I don't know.
Thomas.
Who knows? Tomas. Who knows? Tomato, whatever. It didn't bother me that much, but like my husband used to laugh when I would come and be like, "Oh, Margot" several times today. All right. Last question. Let's go, Abby.
Okay. So if you had an entrance theme song, like anywhere you went, a little bit of a theme song would play. Any doorway you walked through.
I can't believe you're even asking me that. This is like a family, like this is something we talk about all the time in my family. And our theme songs change. The one we always gravitate to, but I will be honest, it did start with the dog. You can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. So I always gravitate to that, but it's really not so much my theme song as it like is my husband's. So what would my theme song be right now? Oh man, you have me stumped. The kickball sound was easier. My song. Oh my goodness. I'm going through a 90s thing lately.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say lately, it's basically the entire pandemic. I'm going with Rhythm is a Dancer.
Love it.
Yes.
Rhythm is a dancer.
Yes.
Love it. Oh my gosh, so good. This felt
worth
so
the
good.
wait. Totally.
But you know, in that moment when you're just like, there's so many songs in my head and I can't, like they're all blending into one and it all sounds like Kira Wiley's Just Be.
Oh my God, that's my go-to Shavasana song for my kiddos. It's the number one. It's the number one song on my Spotify because I play it literally every day of the week for work.
Yeah, that's
so
TikTok.
funny.
Yep. Awesome.
Love it. All right. So before we sign off and say goodbye, Abby and I do this segment called Win of the Week, where we share our wins with each other, with our listeners. Could be something big or small. Do you have a win of the week for us?
I have a win of the week. My wins, some are big, some are small. They're all important to me. So my win this week is it's the win of today. There's a gig that I enjoy very much, and it's working with the Seaport. And we're coming back, and we didn't know if that was going to happen, and we found out today. And it's just amazing stuff that we started doing pre-pandemic to like really build community in the Seaport area. After Hurricane Sandy, which is like 100 years ago at this point, but it took a long time to build that up again. And it was building so nicely. And then pandemic. So pre-pandemic, they were just putting so much money into the residential and the business area and everything down there. And we were a big part of it. And then it came to a big halt now that things are starting up again. So I'm excited that they're starting that program again. It's one of my favorite things to do is to teach outdoors. And that's my little business win of the week.
That's a big win. That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Congrats. And so we're so excited for you. It's just a good feeling when stuff gets back to normal, right? After all of this, we've been through so much. So that's a
Yes.
wonderful one.
Yes. Like some
Yeah.
of those things that you just like that make your heart sing and you're like,
Yeah.
please return, please return.
Yeah.
Come back so I
Like,
don't pick my nails.
yeah, but like these are, like I look to adding things back that were comfortable and things that are going to feel good and feel more normal. And then I hope to go in it with, without a panic attack. So
Yeah.
Yes, don't we all? Oh my gosh, this was so much fun, Shari. You are such an amazing person, and we're just beyond grateful that you took the time out of your very busy schedule to chat
Yes.
with Abby and I today. And
I'm so
thank
grateful that
you.
you had me. It was so wonderful to talk with you.
Yes. It was so great to
Yay.
meet you. You are just so like vibrant and like I just
Oh my
got
goodness, you
such a
just
great
we
vibe.
should
I
do
just
this
love it.
weekly. Let's
A
just
ball of energy.
week and
So just tell everybody quick where they can find you.
Oh, I'm the founder and creator of Karma Kid Yoga. You could find me at karmakidyoga.com, Karma Kid Yoga on Instagram. Or if yoga isn't your thing, I'm also Shari Vilchez-Blatt, also on Instagram, on Facebook. And I'm in New York City.
Yay. All
Yay.
right, Shari, you're the best. Thank you so much, Anxiety Warrior. We love you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, Anxiety Warriors.
It was so great to relive this conversation with Shari. I just feel super warm and smiley listening to her voice. And I just feel super grateful that she took the time out of her busy life as a founder and CEO of a big kids yoga company to chat with us.
Yes.
I was especially just stoked to just hear from Shari that she wanted to be a guest on the podcast, that she'd been listening to the podcast. It was just like a starstruck moment for me. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah. When you told me she reached out, I was like, oh, really?
What?
We're going to have her
Shari?
on? Like, this is awesome. And I just think it's so important that we're talking about anxiety and that people know that anyone is welcome on the pod, any human being, anyone
Yeah.
that's human and has anxiety, like this is a place for you, right? You don't need a special anxiety story or a unique anxiety story. It's we are
Right.
all living with this and we're all human and we are a community of anxiety warriors.
And it was just a great reflection for me too. It's like, oh, we're all on the same playing field when it comes to our anxiety, right? It's like even the people that we look up to in our work or just in general, people in our lives that have an outward way of being that energizes or excites, and we all kind of look at each other with these gloss colored or rose colored glasses, but we're all on that same playing field when it comes to our human experience, and especially us warriors, as you just said. So we were thrilled to hear from her. Thanks, Shari.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Abby, what were some of your big takeaways from our conversation?
Yeah. So it wasn't even something that was explicitly said, but one of my big takeaways is how important like fidget spinners or like, really are. Like, I grew up biting my nails, and one of my friends in elementary school, middle school, high school, she bit her nails too. And so we bonded on that, but not everyone bit their nails, and I remember, just like Shari said, I used to hide my fingers a lot, especially if I bit them too short and they were like bleeding, and yet that was a symptom of something that was going on, but it was never really talked about. It was just a habit. And so you shared how you would fiddle with your rings, which is actually something I do too. And so, one of my takeaways is, just how important it is for human beings to have something to do with their fingers when they're feeling anxious so they don't lead to harming themselves.
Right. I just feel like just when you were saying that, it's like, yeah, I guess we just all had gnarly fingers in those teen and preteen years, and even into like my adolescence too, or my like late teens. Was I still kind of messing around with my hands? And even right now, while we're podcasting, like we still have these anxious moments, and I'm like, I have my fingers interlaced, and I'm kind of giving them gentle squeezes. And now it's kind of like this is a coping strategy, but it's not harming me, as you just said.
Right.
So, yeah. It's interesting the way it's like, it's a habit, but we have good habits and we have less than great habits.
Yeah.
And so I love the way Shari kind of reframed that too. just like this was a habit. And now she kind of was able to tell us about some of her more positive habits, things that she
Right.
can do on the regular. I loved the worry buttons
Yes.
and just the idea of having that either somebody else or for yourself, right? Like
Mhm.
just remembering that we can take care of ourselves, or we can ask people in our lives that are loving and supporting us through our anxiety. Hey, I could use a little bit of firm pressure from somebody that
Right.
isn't me right now on my forehead. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Something else that, I really appreciated Shari shedding light on is, we can be aware of our habits and then we can learn to change them. Right. And so her habits used to be like waking up in the morning and like diving right into work and having a
Mm.
very stressful day. And when she realized, hey, this isn't serving me, this is not helping my well being, she was able to change her routine, change her habits. And it wasn't even like, she had to take an hour bubble bath and then she had to go for a 45-minute jog. Like she could just reset within 2 to 3 minutes and then get on her day. And it changed the rest of her day.
Right. And just the idea of being able to take care of yourself in the moment, but then also, as you just reflected, when you get up in the morning, which you hopefully are going to do every day, you have some options, things you can do to take care for yourself to set yourself up for an optimal day going forward.
Yeah.
So, such a great conversation. And I just love the brain gym too. That stuff was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. And the whole PACE and the backwards acronym. And
Yeah.
it's just, how I feel about like little catchphrases or
Yes.
words or things to hold on to, because in a moment you're like, okay, what are my options? What are my tools? What are some things that I can try? And then the more
Mm-hmm.
you practice them, the better equipped you're going to be generally, because you just always have something that you can pull to.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it. It was such a
Yeah.
great chat. And we hope you all enjoyed it. And we loved, especially, or I did as the person that curates our Instagram account, how much Shari loves our Instagram. And
Yes.
so if you're not following us over there yet, we hope you join us at Anxiety Warriors Podcast over on IG. We do have lots of fun over there. It's lots of fun. There's dance videos and silliness and pictures. And then, of course, some of the more less interesting, or maybe just as interesting, graphics about like, how to care for yourself and anxiety.
And we
I don't
got
know.
Michael Scott. We got The Office. So
Lots of office memes. I could literally just have an account of office memes.
Yes. Yep.
We'd love to hear from you. Share your wins of the week with us. You can email us at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. You can shoot us a message over there and let us know what you're interested in hearing about too. If there's a certain topic idea, or if you think you'd be a great fit as a guest on our podcast, we'd love to hear that too. So, Warriors, thank you again so much for being here. It literally means the world to us. And if you love us as much as we love you, we hope that you will smash that 5-star review button. Smash
5 stars.
And write us a little something just so we can continue to grow our community of warriors and just keep journeying together.
Yes. Yes. So thank you. Thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful you are here.
We love you, Warriors. Till next time.